Have you ever gone on a journey to intentionally seek wisdom? Have you ever gone on a journey to intentionally seek inspiration? A place you've been before and you remember how important it was, that sacred ground we talked about a few weeks ago. Maybe it's returning to your past, a place that promises answers to all who come through. Have you ever gone somewhere seeking inspiration? Were you impressed? Did it meet your expectations? Were you content with the journey's outcome? Were you actually inspired? Have you ever gone somewhere seeking inspiration and actually been inspired? Maybe our pilgrimages, our spiritual pilgrimages, can turn into something beautiful, but often they end up kind of disappointing. Sometimes our expectations are way out of whack. Sometimes we get lost along the way on our journey and never get there. Sometimes we're not prepared for what we discover. We go having an end in mind of what it's going to look like, and when it's not that, well, we're just not moved. I remember driving cross country with my family before college. I fell asleep in Kansas and woke up when we had come all the way out of Oklahoma. I was really disappointed because I was checking off states I'd never been to. And I told my parents, I said, I completely missed Oklahoma. And they said, no, you didn't. My mom assured me my journey was not incomplete for what I had missed along the way. Maybe my expectations were just a little too high. When we got to California, we still had a few days before school started. I got 3 days in a hotel room with my parents. Yay. I remember getting here, thinking I had arrived somewhere, and then the disappointment, the anticlimactic nature of arrival. I still wanted to experience that sense of pilgrimage, that something was about to happen. But instead of pilgrimage, I discovered purgatory. Sometimes our pilgrimages turn our lives upside down. Sometimes they're just a colossal disappointment. I wonder what Nicodemus was expecting when he journeyed out into the night. I wonder what Nicodemus expected when he went looking for Jesus. Answers, understanding, at least maybe an end to the political mess that was surrounding the temple and the Jewish leadership. I wonder if Nicodemus knew how much change this journey would bring into his life. The search for Jesus begins with Nicodemus as a physical search. He goes out of his house, he goes out into the night to go and find Jesus. He went out to search for the teacher, to get answers from the miracle worker. The search for Jesus, though, becomes a spiritual journey for Nicodemus. He's met with more questions than answers. He's met with profound truths that require reflection. Some people set out on a physical journey and find themselves on a spiritual pilgrimage. Some people dive inward seeking spiritual enlightenment that somehow leads them down a new path in their life, a new physical journey to attempt. Either way, we can see that these two are connected, they're intertwined. What we experience in the world and what happens in our hearts and minds, we're constantly seeing these intertwined. They're constantly informing each other. I had a professor once tell me that an hour of prayer was like an hour of study. And an hour of study was like an hour of prayer. And if you did either one of them right, you wouldn't know where one began and the other ended. She really was disappointed with how much I studied. The reality is we cannot complete a spiritual journey. We cannot complete a spiritual journey without finding some physical expression of it on the back end. And we cannot interact with the world around us. We cannot make discoveries if we really interact with God's creation and God's people without it making us reflect on our lives and seek meaning. The physical and the spiritual journey are connected, and we are intertwined with both. We are invited to both. Like us, Nicodemus starts on a journey that begins on his own terms. He knows what he's going out for. He has set his destination. He quickly realizes that his journey has gotten complicated. It's going to require more of him. He's quickly confronted with his own potential to understand more spiritually than he had imagined. He's a leader of the people. He is a religious leader, one of the Pharisees, one of those the people looked up to for teachings. And he's reminded he still has more to grow. One of my favorite parts about Nicodemus is that he keeps asking questions. Did you notice that as Ellie read it? Jesus says something and Nicodemus asks a question. It leads to something else that's a little embarrassing for him. Each step of the way, Jesus saying, "Don't you understand?" I don't know about you all, but when I don't understand something, I try to hide it. When I don't understand something, I smile and nod. When I don't understand something, I change the topic to something I do understand, distracting you from what I didn't. And I'm not alone in that. The whole not accepting what we don't know, pretending we've got it together, especially in front of Jesus. Jesus is watching, everybody. We need to act like we got our stuff together. But Nicodemus says, no, I don't understand. And Jesus goes, you don't get it? Okay, well, here's this. And Nicodemus' response is, I still don't understand. Constantly, his hand, constantly his hand goes up. The lack of understanding. Now, you can get a long ways in our world acting like you know everything and like you've got nothing to learn. You can become an expert. You can become president, I assume. But we all have room to grow. We all have more to learn. I wonder if we could follow Nicodemus' example, if when we get in over our head, simply raising our hand to ask a question. The journey starts out as a trip for him, a simple trip to go out and find Jesus. It suddenly changes direction, and now we're deep into the heart and soul of Nicodemus. Are we ready for such a journey? Are we ready to discover our own potential? Are we ready to see ourselves as spiritual beings? To see ourselves as spiritual beings, capable people. Are we willing to see ourselves as capable people with more power than we've imagined? And are we ready to imagine ourselves in conversations with Jesus? Last Sunday, we talked about accepting reality, knowing where we are and what's really going on around us, seeing the world around us without denial or avoidance. And this week, we are called to ask the question, what will we do about it? If we have gone out into the night like Nicodemus and discovered Jesus, what will we do about it? If we discover we don't know everything, if we discover there's more room to grow, if we discover we have the potential to shape our future in ways we had underestimated, what will we do about it? Nicodemus may be our best answer. To discover we have the potential to seek change and to make change. Internally, exploring the ways we see ourselves, and then externally, trying to change the way we do things. For those who feel lost, stuck in the past, Nicodemus challenges us to enter the dark bravely, to go bravely into the night, to take on a journey, to seek it out, and trust that God is in the dark as much as in the light. For those who feel judged and condemned, who feel forgotten, Nicodemus challenges us to imagine what more could be. What more we might become, how we might transform in this world. Susan was a member at one of the churches I served in Indiana, and it was hard to find much record of her in the church logs, in the books. Her social media only went back so far. As I learned her story, I discovered she had had lots of health problems, a cancer diagnosis, then family problems, a divorce, other issues within the family, and then more medical problems as the cancer put her at rock bottom. She felt like there was no end to her misery. Eventually, the chemo ended. Eventually, she started rebuilding relationships. And along the way, she went to the courthouse and legally changed her name to Susan Phoenix because she was determined to be a new creation, that she would be a new person, and that God she trusted would shape her on the journey. Almost 20 years ago, my dad informed me that he had stopped drinking. It's not something he'd planned to do. He didn't really talk to anyone about it, but he discovered he was going to be a grandfather. And it excited him so much, it got him thinking about his life. It got him looking back at old family photos and looking at me as a child. It got him thinking about his own childhood and what things he wished he could do over. It started as a journey in prayer that changed one habit, that changed all his relationships. Susan's outward journey through healthcare and relationships led to a spiritual journey of self-discovery. Cecil's inward journey through prayer led to an outward transformation in how he lived. The two journeys are intertwined. The two journeys are intertwined. Sometimes our spiritual pilgrimage will turn out to be a huge disappointment. Other times, other journeys will show us how much potential we have. Sometimes our spiritual pilgrimage will turn out to be a disappointment, but other times it will change our lives. Amen.